Welcome to our second video in the series 7 Myths about Women Entrepreneurs that Even Smart People Believe. This is the second video about the first myths. And it's all in the context about how myths shape the way we think and impact our lives, both as individuals and as businesses. So let's dive in to the first myth. Women have low confidence. Do they really? And is that what you believe? This is one of, if not the most persistent myth, and potentially one of the most harming. We'll see that all 7 are quite harmful, but this one is particularly problematic as confidence and competence are tied, theoretically and in effect, but also more in our perceptions. And we'll talk through that in a minute. So we're here unpacking these myths because the stories we tell ourselves impact what we think what we think is good, how our decisions are made, and in the context of entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystems, it shapes who we think is good and who is worthy of being supported, funded, promoted, and so on. So in this case, when we look specifically at confidence broadly, before we delve into the women's aspect of it, confidence and competence are not as connected as you may think. Confidence is, in fact, entirely disconnected from competence. Think about it. We all know someone who has no competence, really can't do very much, and is still very cocky and confident. I'm not going to stereotype who that type of person is, but I think you get my drift. We all know one at least. So confident with very little competence is a possible combination. We also know people who are very competent, but the confidence isn't entirely there. And that low confidence, when it comes with competent people, is called the imposter phenomenon. So we know that that's a thing as well. Now, Dunning-Kruger actually posited that if competence and confidence go together through the process of learning, you get the graph that you're looking at now. Where at the beginning, when you know a little bit about something, you think, that's easy. I know all about it. Your confidence shoots up. As you get to know more about it, you start to realize that actually this is more difficult than you originally thought. There are subtleties, there's complexities. And if you're ever going to become an expert in that area, it's going to take more work, more effort, and you're not entirely there. And that's when you see confidence starting to slowly slide down, till you reach a bottom bit about halfway through your journey, where you realize you've come from quite far, you're not far enough, and you do wonder if you're ever truly going to get it and master what it is you're trying to do. And so there, both confidence is quite low, and competence is quite low as well, but not as much as the person is feeling it at that point in time. And then slowly, it starts to click. You start to get it, and you go up in confidence. But notice that even by the time that you have mastered a skill, a competence, it being your confidence, is never as high as when it was on Mount Stupid. When we are confident about things we don't know, the confidence is really quite high. But by the time we get to that area of expertise, the confidence is more moderated. Now, why am I telling you this? Because this is really important when it comes to women. Now, research shows us that women are more realistic in their evaluation of their competence. And therefore, actually, when you're talking to women who have quite a high expertise on what they're doing, they're in that enlightenment type moderated confidence spot. You're not getting the overly confident, dramatic, orchestrated types of performances. And that is what some people, Joe and Jane blogs, but more importantly, that's what investors at the moment are seeing. We're seeing far too many investors, potential partners, that are looking at moderate confidence with a lot of competence. They're talking to experts in their field and deciding that that moderated confidence means lower competence. And that's also then where you get that combined with women who are in the grips of the imposter phenomenon, put them together, and then this blanket statement comes out: women have low confidence. When in fact, the actual evidence shows us that women have lower confidence relative to their men counterpart. But that doesn't mean it's low by any means. It actually, evidence shows us, it's more realistic and it's moderated. And so when you're listening to a woman and hearing her say, it could be this or it could be that, we're still exploring, we're investigating, instead of giving you a direct fact, which is not a fact, but the person speaking to you has given you the very confident statement. And again, we know many people like that. We're not going to name names here. People take that as low confidence and low competence. It's a double whammy. And I can't move on here without also making a note about the imposter phenomenon. If you want to know more about that, please look at the work of a fabulous woman called Kate Atkins with her book on the imposter phenomenon. But the thing I want to highlight here is the imposter phenomenon is as likely to be experienced by men as it is by women. And yet, for some reason, it's become a story about women. We talk about women having the imposter phenomenon or the imposter syndrome, but note the correct phrasing here, as Kate tells us, and we learn from her, it is the imposter phenomenon. It is a phenomenon, not a syndrome, and it is equally likely in men and women. So that's important. Men and women can have a confidence wobble while being incredibly competent. And when you are an expert and incredibly competent, your confidence is likely to be more moderated than if you are displaying very high confidence, probably is not going with a lot of competence. Of course, there are always the outliers, but the chart in front of you shows you more or less how confidence and competence go together. So you may think to yourself, if you could only have one, competence or confidence, which one would you have? In this day and age, confidence takes you a long way, but eventually you'll be found out that you're not quite as competent as you think. So we need that balance of both. But as we've seen with the myth surrounding women, if you have competence and your confidence isn't matching, you're truly penalized for that, and your competence, your ability to do things, to achieve all the really excellent outcomes you're capable of, are overlooked and undervalued. So, women have low confidence is one of 7 myths that we need to shatter. We will systematically unpack the other 6 in future videos. But here we pause to look and remind you that these are systemic issues. When we talk about women having low confidence, we showed that it is our perception of their level of confidence. They have lower confidence than overperforming, overconfident individuals. That doesn't make them that they have low confidence. And lower confidence absolutely does not mean lower competence. So how we view, how we listen, and the decisions we take about women based on our perception of their confidence is really important. So let's really focus on fixing the system, not the women. And I remind you why fixing the system is important. We'll bring this up in every myth, but really when you're thinking about fixing the women, you'd be challenging the woman to fake it till you make it. I'm sure you've heard that expression. The amount of times that I hear that said to women. Stand up, be big, take space, fake it till you make it. You need to look more confident. You need to sound more confident. Speak up. But actually, what we need to do is be able to listen. Can we spot the signals for competent? Can we see the evidence for competence? Is there the evidence that outcomes are going to be achieved? Are we listening and looking at a person we can work with, we can invest in, we can sponsor, or even buy from? And these are all systemic questions, systemic reframing, systemic shifts. So, happy fixing systems, and don't try to fix the women. The diversity in their different outcomes and confidence is exactly what you need. So, this is our first myth of the 7. If you've seen our overview video or you stick with us for the others, tell us, what myth will you challenge? How are you going to do it? What else do you need? Ask us any question. All these videos are coming out of the work of Canvas, where we look at challenging, evaluating, redesigning, helping grow, scale ecosystems where everyone can thrive, bloom, and the innovation ecosystem as a collective can deliver the outcomes it aspires to. So keep in touch and let's see you in the next video.